Good afternoon. I'd like to start by thanking Dr. Ali Gorbana and University of New Brunswick and the Canadian Institute for Cybersecurity. I'm thrilled to be here today. And you always think when you meet people, you hear their story and you think, wow, I had a really rough day yesterday getting here to Fredericton. And then I heard Andrew talk. And I'm thinking, wow, it's always neat when you get to hear the collective stories and the challenges. Anyway, it was, I applaud you for making it here, and I'm sorry that you went through and I don't think quantum's going to solve the problems. Okay, so a little bit about me. I'm a CTO for Shared Services Canada. And Shared Services Canada is that group within the Government of Canada that provides the common infrastructure that's used to support 43 partner departments. So you heard, Rajiv was up here earlier, Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, worked closely with the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, and we work closely with Treasury Board, or OCIO, which is the group that provides the oversight and discussion with policy for most of the Government of Canada. Very, very common. The three of us work very closely in the security tripartite. But Shared Services Canada, we have a really unique role to play in that the infrastructure that we have really does power the Government of Canada and the key partner departments. So spend a little bit of time. I came from private sector. This is year 3 for me in the public sector, and I will tell you it has been a fascinating journey. Having done a startup, sold a startup, and then moved into doing corporate M&A, and then into cybersecurity, a very varied past. But nothing would have prepared me for the challenges I faced in the past 3 years joining Shared Services Canada. In 2020, in the midst of a pandemic, and the only person I met in my first year in person was the person who took my fingerprints. So I'm going to start a little bit today about walking through a couple of things. I'm going to give an overview of Shared Services Canada to help walk through a little bit of the background and help you understand why we are where we are today. I'm going to spend a little bit of time, because this is a cyber event, walking through our cybersecurity roadmap. I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of talent. My team will often hear me say, we can't do anything without having talent. And I'm thrilled to see so many young faces in the room today, the next generation of talent, and that's absolutely outstanding. It's great to see so many different perspectives taking an interest in talent. And the last piece, I'm going to touch a little bit on sustainability, because I believe, climate change is real and cybersecurity risk is real. Both those challenges are facing many organizations today. Okay, a little bit of history, a bit of an eye chart. Shared Services Canada, before 2011, Shared Services was, all the departments ran their own IT infrastructure. In 2011, Shared Services was created with the premise of pulling all these different fragmented IT departments, different architectures, different equipment, different standards together. The idea to consolidate and modernize the GC infrastructure. Huge challenge. You put the 43 departments together, and that was the creation of Shared Services Canada. At that time, it was only 1,000 people. Moving to 2012 and 2013, what they started to do was move from the fragmented infrastructure to start consolidating and really trying to look for common threads within the organization, but still a very daunting challenge in terms of taking all those disparate architectures, disparate technologies, and putting them together. In 2016, the focus shifted to, we now need to start doing upgrades and putting replacements in place. And that was the first time where we really started to make significant cyber investments. 2019, pretty monumental. The creation of the SSC 3.0 vision was the first point in time where we really shifted from the 43 different flavors of departments to truly thinking about an enterprise perspective. So in order for us to be able to operate the infrastructure of the size and scale of SSC, we really needed to take an enterprise approach. And that was really the start of it, was the SSC 3.0 vision. It was predicated on a couple of key components. One, we needed to have a network and security principle. There's 3 pillars: network and security, application modernization, and devices. We need to have a common set of tools, common workplace technology, and we needed to have the application modernization effort. We had a lot of legacy data centers, 720 to be exact. And so, there's 18,000 applications running at the time when SSE 3.0, and most of 80% of those applications were running in those aging data centers. So this, to get a perspective, that's a huge amount of challenge for SSE to undertake. The other thing, just for a little bit more background on SSE and the size and scale of it, we operate 50 different networks. 4,000 locations, 5,000 buildings. We're on our own network. We have 8 cloud framework agreements, not coming from private sector. Most organizations used to have 2 or 3. We have 8. That'll give you a sense and scale of the size of the attack surface that we would have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. I know you saw Rajiv put up the numbers. The number that we had for last year was 10.2 billion attacks were being blocked coming into our network. Quite a monumental scale when you think of the challenge that we face. In 2020, as I mentioned, the COVID pandemic, we moved to hybrid work. And that involved SSE really pivoting. You think about everybody was working in the buildings, and immediately, almost overnight, people had to start working from home. Massive shift. SSE responded very quickly by shipping out massive amounts of devices, laptops, iPads, whatever it took, mobile devices, immediately shipped out to individuals. We had to upgrade the network to be able to support remote work, and we had to put in place new collaboration tools to allow people to work remotely. And it was quite a daunting challenge, but because of the SSE 3.0 approach, it really served as an accelerator. It allowed us to quickly move on things that SSE had talked about doing, but the pandemic really forced it into action. In 2023, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time today walking through the roadmaps on delivering digital solutions together. That's really the next stage for us. So building upon SSE 3.0, the response from the pandemic, and kind of an insight in terms of where we're going. Delivering digital solutions together, there's 4 key roadmaps that we're talking, and we're doing this both internally. We've had discussions with partner departments, and at some point in the future, we'll be having this discussion with our industry partners. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the importance of industry engagement. One of the things since joining SSC, it's been a huge part of the role from a CTO perspective. We get a lot of insight from our industry partners. And I think about each industry partner, and I know Andrew, because we just finished having a session on quantum computing, talking with his folks. Industry partners bring insight to the table for us. We don't figure everything out on our own. We need to have these type of engagements. We need to have engagements with industry partners, but we also need to be able to communicate clearly with both our staff, our employees in terms of where we're going, and also the partner departments. So these 4 roadmaps really are the underpinning, and we have a lot more roadmaps, but these are the 4 we elected to focus on. Digital services, this is the fact that, right now, when you move one department to another, you change your device. We don't want to be doing that. We want to be able to make it so that employees can move freely within the public sector. They have a common set of workplace tools that they get used to. We've done it to a certain degree with M365, but I think there's still a lot more when it comes to collaboration and tools that we can do. Hosting services. As I mentioned, we had 720 aging data centers. We're now down to 240. I know it still seems like an awful lot of data centers. We have 4 enterprise data centers and 8 cloud service providers. That's a lot of different choices for partner departments to make in terms of where they want to host their data. So we're working really hard to try and make this simple for them. And I think the journey to cloud, originally we adopted with Treasury Board, and our focus was public cloud. And we really focused heavily on public cloud. We migrated to now making that more of a cloud smart choice, where we're taking a look at private cloud, and we're really helping partner departments understand, where is the best spot for the application to be hosted. Connectivity services, none of this works without having a network. We need to have a secure, resilient network. And the connectivity services talks about where we're going with respect to leveraging, 5G technology, 5G wireless technology, and wireline technology. It's all important. We have to make sure that the network works, because without it, none of the services get delivered. And the last one is the cyber. And you heard mentioned earlier the comment about we're moving towards zero trust, and we're still on that journey. I was at a cyber event probably about 2 months ago, and there was a number of folks around there, and just about everybody talks about that they're on the zero trust journey. Nobody's done. No, not one person in the room said, oh yeah, we did zero trust, we finished that last year. We're moving on to the next thing. Not really happening. It's also interesting for me because we've heard from Steve this morning on generative AI, heard from Andrew on quantum. Those are probably the two terms I've heard the most in the last 3 months, maybe even 6 months. The number of companies that come up and say, well, we have a quantum safe solution. I was like, oh, okay, sounds very good. But then you start digging beneath the surface and say, well, not really sure if it's how this is quantum safe, because it's not like, you remember before there used to be that Intel Inside on some of the devices. Maybe, I don't know if the younger generation's seen the Intel Inside sticker, so maybe that was a dated joke. But the idea being is that you really don't know if it's quantum safe. How do you know that? But I feel like that's the next challenge. It's almost similar to the challenge that when Zero Trust came out, right after John Kinderberg talked about it, suddenly, industry partners all talking about, well, we have a Zero Trust solution. Then AI came out, and now it's all AI embedded on the solutions. Now I think we're in the point where we're generative AI, or we have a co-pilot, and we're also quantum safe. So I think it's important from a cyber perspective to really dig beneath the surface to truly understand what you're looking at. Okay, a little bit about the roadmap. We needed to perform a current state evaluation. A lot of the cybersecurity initiatives within SSC were done based on projects. A lot of good projects were started, but they started back in 2016, as I alluded to. We couldn't figure out a way how they all hung together. How are they aligned towards something? So what we did is we conducted over a 4-month period. We reviewed, I don't know, probably 30 to 40 different documents, reference architectures, project histories to try and figure out, okay, what do we have? Did 125 different consultations, 19 different focus groups, an awful lot of work. And with our folks at the Cyber Center, we did some spot testing in terms of our environment to see whether or not some of our controls were working effectively. All this led to us really figuring out what we need as a current state. Why is that important? Well, because we kind of had to know where we were going. We have all these projects that were in place, but we needed to really baseline, an updated baseline in terms of where we're at, and understand the gaps we're seeing. And the gaps can come from any number of different areas. So you heard a little bit about what the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. They're constantly monitoring cyber threat intel. They're constantly feeding information to us. We also have, in the private sector, you don't have the fortuitous benefit of having a Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity as your partner when you're working on cyber. But they're constantly helping us. And what do they see? What should we care about? Then we have all of the other things that we see on a daily basis, because we scan, I don't know, about 400,000 different assets a day. Well, on a monthly basis. That's the number we take a look at, and we see the 400,000 assets, and we see the vulnerabilities they identified. How do we figure out what stuff we need to care about? Well, because you can't just use CVSS score, we have to embed it with cyber threat intel to figure out what stuff threat actors are actively exploiting. That's important. But going back to my earlier comment, it's really important to figure out where do we prioritize our efforts. But we needed to truly understand, with our current state, where are we at and where are we going? And I think that was the key part of this. What are we doing now? So, as I said, we're transitioning from leveraging a zero trust approach. So we took all of those different initiatives that were in flight. We really did try and take it and map it against the zero trust framework. I needed to take a look at what are we doing on the identity front? What are we doing on the device front? What are we doing to make sure individuals only have access to what they need to do their job? And then how are we approaching continuous monitoring? All of those were key components, and what we did is we mapped this into the framework. I think you saw a slide from Rajiv earlier that mapped the zero trust framework. We used the same framework. The idea being that we needed to figure out, are we doing things in each of those different areas, and how we do, and those initiatives, are they reducing our residual risk? We're focused on improving the identity. We're focused on improving our approach to multi-factor. We have multi-factor implemented. We're now having discussions around and are in the midst of implementing hardware-based multi-factor for privileged account users. It's a way to take our, from the current approach we have, yet another way in which we can strengthen our overall defense. You heard about the importance of making sure you're protecting those individuals that have the keys to the kingdom. That's really part of that. And then we're investigating and adopting new security technologies. Heard me talk a little bit. One of the nice roles about being CTO is we get to see new technologies that are coming through the door. So we've done a number of zero trust related pilots within our science community to see new, whether or not there's some new technology that we can take a look at and see whether or not this will help us. What are we planning? So we talk a little bit about on the continuous monitoring. We have a SIM. We needed to update a SIM, and we're in the midst of taking a look at a new SIM. I know this has been going on for a while, and I'm looking at you, Rajiv. And we need to improve our approach to endpoint security. You heard about the talk earlier about XDR. We really need to make sure we have protection on our endpoints. But it's not just the endpoints, it's also all of our mobile devices. So what are we doing on that front? We're taking a look at, this is the stuff we're planning. And then if I take a look at where we're looking ahead, which is where we're going, we need to continuously be looking at what we're doing with respect to cyber. And strengthening it. So we're looking at improving our overall understanding of our attack surface. With the added proliferation of IoT devices, you think about what that attack surface, so just go back to what I talked to you about before, the number of buildings, the size of our network, the number of cloud environments we have, number of partner departments we support, the complexity of our infrastructure. That all speaks to we really need to truly understand what our attack surface looks like. We need to evolve our vulnerability management approach. So we have an approach right now where we're doing continuous scanning. That needs to be much more proactive. We have to move from being more reactive scan, wait a month, and figure out how do we have to patch them. We need to move to a faster way of reducing those vulnerabilities and really leveraging the cyber threat intel that comes into us. And the last part is we have to make sure the security controls we have in place. How are they working? What's the effectiveness of the controls? So you think about all the different controls. I took a look at a meeting last week. We have well over 50 monitoring tools. Okay, that's a lot of insight. That's a lot of monitoring that we've got going on within our environment. But how do we know that that all that monitoring is effectively providing us with the right insight? I wanted to spend a little bit of time to talk about talent. And my team hears me, and I'm very repetitive on this, about the importance. We need to continually be investing in talent. We bring in, I think, over 50 different students every year through our co-op and programs. And that's a huge increase from what we used to do. And the reason being is that we need to be bringing in that next generation of talent. So here's the comment I made to the students because I meet with them every time they come in. Where else would you get up? I walk them through one of my typical days. I got up one morning, and the first meeting I had was one of my directors walking through wearing a VR headset, helping somebody in Northern Canada fix a piece of equipment. From that, I went to a meeting on terms of what we're doing in order to improve cloud security. After lunch, I had a discussion around what our team had done on leveraging AI in order to make sure that we could route service tickets 7% more effective than humans were doing it. And then I finished the day having a discussion with a foreign organization on terms of how they're leveraging blockchain or crypto or blockchain technology in order to improve their security posture all the way through their supply chain. Where else would I be able to have those four technologies solving business problems in a discussion in a single day? That's the value that we have. And so when I think about that, though, all of those technologies, they're really important, but we need to have the people that understand them. And you heard earlier, I think it was Rick was talking about the importance of investing in talent. We have to have the talent. So we've had over 950 participants go through our cloud skilling program. We've just recently expanded the skilling program to include AI, ML, and cyber, because those are of the three areas. And those are probably areas right now that we're getting the most, we're trying to attract the most talent in those areas. But we also, once people join us, they want to know that they have a career development path. And so if we don't put the training in place for them, then they're going to find other places in order to get educated, and we're going to lose them. The other thing, a challenge is, we train on them. You can see 159 of them have cloud certifications. We do lose them. We do lose people once they get their certifications. But it's important for us to do two things. We need to make our environment attractive enough for them to stay. So that means giving them career opportunities and growth opportunities. So once they get the certifications, they're not compelled to leave. But we're still going to lose them, and that's okay. As long as they, in many cases, they go to other partner departments, and that just means we're spreading talent throughout the GC. Last thing I wanted to touch on was sustainability. And sustainability, you can see what we're doing with supporting the greening of government strategy. It's really important for us. As I said, there are two significant risks most organizations are facing. One is the cyber risk, and one is the climate change risk. And so, Vas, this is just a key focus for us. What we're starting to do is we're not only having discussions with organizations in terms of how they can help us on reducing cyber risk, we're asking what are they doing in terms of helping us, improve our overall approach to getting towards net zero. As you can see up there, I'm not going to go through the comments, but this is a quick snapshot of what's up on our website with respect to what we're doing on the sustainability front. I'm going to wrap a couple of closing comments. Hopefully, you learned a little bit more about SSC today. Hopefully, you understood a little bit about what we're doing with respect to moving towards zero trust. Keeping the focus on our citizens' experience. At the end of the day, everything we're doing is for two reasons. One, to make sure we're improving the ability for the applications that our citizens are leveraging with our partner departments to be able to make sure that those are working, and that we have a secure and resilient environment in order for them to operate, because we're protecting the data in which we have sitting in our infrastructure. Talent is critical. Sustainability and cybersecurity are important. And recognize, if there's one thing that I can say, everything we've tried to do takes time. It takes time to educate people, and it takes time for you to have the implementation, do a proof of concept, trial it out, see how it works. But the idea is, I tell my team, try and make tomorrow better than today. If you approach every day like that, hopefully we will get to a better future. Thank you very much for your time today.